Akwisiye sa yo ka fe ko yo a pa mi nou jodi. La se mouve vale pied non nou ka crucifié mon evi. Faut nous connaître pour meilleur c'est pour nous tout ça bénéfice. For all the wonders you done for us all, spreading the culture all over the world. For all the good things that you done for God, that's what it is. We thanking you. We thanking you, brother. Ajan lo moun bisou pa sav ki chale yo pwen wivi esi. Faut nous connaître voye yo akuma smaka das music. Gordon Henderson, Fritz Roy Williams yo. Vivian Wallace, Exile, One Groovers, Chef Joe. Yo passe nous les voyages musique nous. Mais attends jodi, jeunesse te ki la J. Si pa te wadix ki ka pousse. For all the wonders you done for us all, spreading the culture all over the world. For all the good things that you done for God, that's what it is. We thanking you. We thanking you, brother. Pa pou an wete ba moun flera yo mange a kite la vi. Akwisiye sa yo ka fe ko yo a pa mi nou jodi. La se mouve vale pied non nou ka crucifié mon evi. Faut nous connaître pour meilleur c'est pour nous tout ça bénéfice. For all the wonders you done for us all, spreading the culture all over the world. For all the good things that you done for God, that's what it is. We thanking you. We thanking you, brother. Tout ça au café, et puis au Japon, au Colchono, et tout ça au café pour Cadas la Esprit.
Pleasant morning, Dominica. Good morning, Eastern Caribbean. Welcome to another Creole Heartbeat program. We are still trying to hook up with our special guest from St. Lucia. That's the legendary and iconic figure of Joseph Fretz Pereira, and soon from now we should be getting some connection going through. Our technicians are feverishly trying to get in contact with him. This gentleman has done so much for Caribbean sport, for West Indies. Remember the days of the mighty West Indies with the four-prong pace attack. Viv Richards, Clive Lloyd, Alvin Kalisharan, Lawrence Rowe, Roy Fredericks. Those days he would have commentated and would have been alongside late Tony Kozia. And he spent several years at the OECS desk. And we will be actually speaking about that. We are part of the OECS. And as we speak, a special OECS heads are meeting in St. Lucia as we speak. The 7th session of the OECS Assembly took place yesterday. And as well as the 77th meeting of the OECS Authority will be taking place today. And that will be taking place in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And several areas of discussion, key matters including free movement and the legislative framework for implementation and the impact of global trade and economic policies on OECS member states. So this special forum is ongoing, and that's why we felt it was so important to actually bring Reds Ferrer. He was also honored by Nature, Sports in Nature, and for his contribution to what he has done for Caribbean people, for OECS in particular. And we are feverishly trying to get in touch with him. And if we can't do it via social media, we may have to do it possibly on phone, because we are still trying to make connections with him. And by the way, you are live on DBS Radio. This is another Creole Heartbeat program, and that's where we delve into the cracks and crevices of culture in Dominica. We also heard some news that the World Creole Music Festival lineup will be launched this coming weekend on Saturday. And let's hope that, everything will be in place for this major festival. By the way, it will be the 25th anniversary of the celebration, which started in 1997. And do not try to do the math, because there were 3 years we didn't have an edition of the World Creole Music Festival. But a major edition is scheduled for this year. That's the 25th anniversary of the World Creole Music Festival, and the major launching will take place. And I wonder if we can possibly see if we can get Billy Doctrove in, so we can talk about Reds Pereira in the meantime while we... okay, he's trying to get us now. So, Din, play the music. Let's see if we can get... he's trying to get me from St. Lucia, so I'm not sure if he's experiencing some problems from his side. So play some music while we await Reds Pereira. Play the theme song one more time. This...
Prince Wadix.
Yes, Reds.
Prince Wadix. Prince Wadix. Prince Wadix. Pa pou an wete ba moun flen la yo mange a kite la vi. Akwisiye sa yo ka fe ko yo a pa mi nou jodi. La se mouve vale vie non nou ka krusife moun evi. Faut nous connaître pour meilleur, c'est pour nous tout ça bénéfice. For all the wonders you done for us all, spreading the culture all over the world. For all the good things that you done for God, that's what it is. We thanking you. We thanking you, brother. Ajalo moun bisou pasav ki chale yo pwen wivi esi. Faut nous connaître kwaye yo akumas makadas music. Gordon Henderson, Fritz Roy Williams et yo. Vivian Wallace, Exile One Groovers, Jeff Joe. Yo passe tous les voyages musique nous. Mais attends jodi, jeunesse te ke la J. Si bate Wadix ki ka pousse. For all the wonders you done for us all, spreading the culture all over the world. For all the good things that you done for God, that's what it is. We thanking you. We thanking you, brother. Pa pou an wete ba moun flen la yo mange a kite la vi. Akwisiye sa yo ka fe kon yo a pa mi nou jodi. La se mouve vale vie non nou ka krusife moun ebi. Faut nous connaître pou meilleur, c'est pour nous tout ça bénéfice. For all the wonders you done for us all, spreading the culture all over the world. For all the good things that you done for God, that's what it is. We thanking you. We thanking you, brother. Pour tout ça au café, et puis au Japon, pour Colchono, et tout ça au café, pour Cadas la esprit. Et puis pour ça, nous les points au temps aujourd'hui, pour dire un pile merci. Prince Wadix, 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 Prince Wadix. We thanking you. Yes, I. Sakai Malan, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix. Pa pou an wete ba moun fle la yo mange a kite la vi. Apresye sa yo ka fe ko yo a pa mi nou joli.
Once again, good morning, Dominica. Good morning, Eastern Caribbean. Let's hope that we have Red Spread, the legendary one, the iconic figure, the iconic voice, the historical voice. Let's see, let's move across and go across and to the Helen of the West, St. Lucia, to see if we have the legendary one with us. Good morning to you, Reds. Are you hearing me, Reds?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, good morning, and how are you, sir? How are you? How are you?
Well, I had a busy morning. I apologize for being late.
Okay, no problem. So let's get right into it. How are you, besides, before we actually get into our topic? How are you?
I'm as good as I could be. I'm good as I could be. I just celebrated my 86th birthday. I'm in good shape.
86 and batting strongly like Viv Richards and Brian Lara.
No, sorry. They have retired and they can't bat as well as they did now.
Okay, Reds, like we said on the phone, we are going to try to do it in two parts. We are going to deal with your tenure at the OECS desk, and then we'll talk about West Indies cricket in our part two. In 1984, you took the role, which was more than a job for you. It was a mission. What was the vision behind the OECS Sports Desk when you began, and how did you see sports shaping up the identity of the islands?
Well, I think I need to begin by when I first heard about the OECS sports job vacancy. The OECS head was meeting in Montserrat. I was at that time living in Barbados, working in television and radio, and I was going to cover the LA Olympics in '84. And the phone rang, and it was Dr. Von Lewis, the Director General. And he said, look, we're thinking of opening a sports desk to stimulate sport in the sub-region grouping. Would you be interested? Well, it was a yes or no answer. I said yes. He says, well, we're having about 5 people we are looking at, and we'll let you know. I came back from the Olympics, and the phone rang again, and they said, you have been appointed, and you must arrive in St. Lucia by October 1, 1984. Mm-hmm. And that's when the desk became a reality.
Mm-hmm. And what was the vision then in 1984?
Well, it was a brand new start. A brand new start. I wasn't replacing anyone. There was no desk. I was establishing the desk. And one of the problems I face is that although UNESCO funded the desk in terms of its expenses, my salary, etc., for the first year, there was no $100,000 earmarked for me to kickstart the program. It's like, you go into farming, you get $50,000 for seeds, at least you can start. That was, in fact, very worrying, and it really forced me to draw on all my contacts, all my private sector people who I had known during my cricket career. So that's basically the hurdle I had to face immediately.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What about uniting the countries? I mean, various diversities? How difficult, how challenging was it for you to unite the OECS countries through sport?
Well, I think you must remember that I'm Guyanese born. I'm not OECS born,
Mm-hmm.
and there were people who felt quite fairly that maybe somebody from the OECS, a citizen of the OECS, should have been appointed. But I was in the job, and it was my effort, my responsibility to show slate, to get it going. And it was already October, and the people were maybe trying to see, what kind of production out of the desk will come. Before that, you had two CARICOM sports officers who came into the OECS islands, but for different reasons, there was no action. There was no activity, and one of the reasons CARICOM Minister of Sport never met until July of each year, and that was almost half of the year gone. Luckily, I started with a tennis tournament, which I got the St. Lucia Tennis Association to participate in. We got the Latok courts free of charge. We managed to raise the money to have the prizes. And I started by inviting Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, U.S. Virgin Islands, because I couldn't develop OECS sports desk programs without having a link to the wider Caribbean and the wider private sector. It turned out to be a winner. The titles was Jimmy Tasker of Barbados, and a young lady, I can't remember her first name, named Lois. She won the singles. From there on, we moved off to a half marathon, which we invited the OECS only because we were now starting, and it was well attended by over 100. And then at the end of the year, we had the first event in Dominica, which was the OECS Basketball Championships, where Dominica and Antigua Barbuda played in the finals. And it was at the old Windsor Park, and it was over 4,000 people turned up, including the Prime Minister then, Eugene Charles. And I think she was pretty surprised to see the kind of interest in an OECS tournament, and I think she realized that something was happening good. That was the start of the OECS program in '84.
At what moment, Reds, you first realized that the village dirt courts, where many young athletes played barefoot, were the true foundation of our sporting future? At what point?
Well, I think after it started to develop in '85, there was no marvelous change in what was happening. It took time. In '85, I think I added another 5 programs, including maybe the OECS Boxing Championships, which was sponsored by Guinness out of Trinidad, the half marathon, which was sponsored by insurance company in Trinidad, and in '86 I added another 5, and by that time the media was playing a great part. The media was very anxious to hear about what was happening, and everybody, I think, was really enthusiastic. All the associations were playing their part, and the OECS basically before that took part maybe in cricket and maybe in netball, but there was not a lot of opportunities in many other disciplines. So I think it started then, and it led to greater participation, greater participation. Then we managed to get National Petroleum to sponsor a major basketball tournament in Grenada. And we had our first OECS track and field championships in Grenada. And it really took off by then.
Many young men, women started on those dirt courts, possibly raw talent. And they were thinking big, they were dreaming big. But how did your work at the OECS desk help transform those dreams into real opportunities, Reds?
Well, because of the activities, I think the infrastructure started to improve. The basketball courts were upgraded, the volleyball courts were upgraded. We had no track per se for track and field in the OECS, but we had to make do running on grass. And I think you had a situation where cricket had the infrastructure. We moved to a cricket tournament, a double wicket cricket tournament, which was held in St. Vincent, held in St. Kitts Nevis, held in Montserrat, and that allowed us to branch out to something in the region which was already up and running. But we never ran an OECS senior cricket championship because you had the Windwards and Leewards board, and that would be in a duplication. Out of that, I think scholarships started to come. I don't know, Foyle from St. Vincent got a scholarship. He was seen at the OECS level, and he got a scholarship to Colgate University, and from there he had a successful career at the NBA.
Wow.
A number of...
Where was he from? Where was he from, Reds?
Also got scholarships in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting on my colleague Ray O'Neill to give me the amount of track and field scholarships that we had for the sub-region. And I would think that, although I haven't had his email back, it was something in the vicinity of, I would say, 50 or 60 scholarships, starting, of course, from Grenada right up to Anguilla, BVI. So a lot of scholarships. Basically, the scouts started to come to watch the OECS track and field, and people got earmarked, and they were contacted, and they went on to get scholarships, and they went on to have a fairly successful college education and a fairly successful track and field career. The OECS Track and Field Championships was sponsored by Texaco, and that led us to organize an OECS team, because Texaco then had the games in Barbados, where Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Barbados, you name it, was invited. And we were able to expose our athletes at that level. And of course, they already had a track, so our athletes were able to perform at a very high level. And that was a major plus, because that was a substantial amount of money invested in the OECS track and field, first of all, and then everybody had to be uniform, airline tickets provided, accommodation provided, and that was a tremendous boost to the OECS program, because people saw activity, and it was a team effort. It was not a Red Spurrier show. It was the sports ministers, the directors of sport in the various countries. The media played a tremendous role. The media played a tremendous role in carrying the OECS programs, the OECS press releases. And in those days, there was no smartphone. There was no Google. There was no WhatsApp. I had a fax machine, and we used to fax the information out to the media houses, fax the information out to all the associations, so everybody knew what was upcoming. If something was happening in St. Kitts, everybody in the windwards and leewards knew what was happening in St. Kitts, etc. And then we added other things like volleyball, table tennis. We had the things like bridge, etc. We certainly added a great deal of things. Later, we got Barbados Mutual to sponsor the swimming, which has just taken off. Swimming just took off. We had Harris Spades sponsoring a Domino's Pairs tournament. And it was that kind of total effort, total support from the private sector, total support from the governments. And I had the ability, I was given permission, I could write to any prime minister, I can write to any minister, and it meant that nothing stayed waiting for an officer within the OECS to send it out. I could send it out by myself in my own hand.
Absolutely. As you look back, Reds, in your view, what was it about the OECS Sports Desk approach that allowed these pathways to flourish where others may have failed?
Well, I think basically, if I tell the truth, it was my contacts that I had made, the people I've met in the private sector world during my cricket commentary career, which wasn't over then by any means. I was given permission to continue to do commentary. And because we're able to provide the sponsorship for the various events, East Caribbean Flour Mills, for example, the late Ken Boyer helped a great deal. We had the Shell wicket-keeping clinics, which was run by Michael Finley for the windwards and Jackie Hendricks for the leewards. Out of those Shell clinics, we produced two West Indies wicketkeepers, Ridley Jacobs and Junior Murray. And we also had fast bowling clinics sponsored by Shell with Andy Roberts and Colin Croft. So once you had the funding, I think the various member states responded, the press responded, the associations responded. In particular, I mean, the basketball was a winner. Basketball was a winner. The crowds in Grenada, the crowds in Dominica, the crowds in Antigua, the crowds in St. Kitts were very, very, very large. And I think it's because of the funding we're able to really move things forward. You can't do anything without sponsorship. And I could not expect the government to provide the money to fund the sports desk. I was lucky in that regards. I was able to get private sector support, and that was part of a total team effort with the directors of sport, with the ministers of sport, private sector, and the media. The media helped a great deal.
What role did coaching, education, facility development, and club support play in bridging the gap from, let's say, the village games to regional and international competitions?
Well, at that time, it was evident that the club structure was the lifeblood of sport in the future. But the desk didn't have the wherewithal to run courses on the club structure. We were hoping that would have been an operation coming from the various, maybe Olympic committees, the various ministries of sport. The desk didn't have all that depth in it to focus on the club structure, although it is still relevant now. Teams don't make strong associations. Clubs make strong associations. Strong associations make good use of sponsorship, make good use of facilities. Strong association cuts the crime, looks after unemployed youth because they're part of an organized club. And I think strong associations make a strong democratic Olympic committee. One of the things that did take place, because at the time when the sports desk started, only the BVI and Antigua had affiliation to the Olympic Committee of the World. And the desk worked with regional presidents from Jamaica, from Barbados. I mean, I remember I got Austin Silly from Barbados to go to Dominica and meet with Jose Harris, the judge who was then president of the Olympic Committee there, president of the Athletic Committee, and that in fact brought affiliation eventually to Dominica, to St. Vincent, to Grenada, to St. Kitts Nevis, and St. Vincent the Grenadines. So they had the linkage, they got contact with the Olympic associations, they had programs which was organized, training, they got some funding, and I think from an administration point of view, they were much more involved in what was happening in the world of international sport.
Absolutely. And your time, Reds, at the OECS desk, how did that influence your understanding of sports as a tool for social and economic development?
Well, you have to go back, if I can just have a sip of water.
Sure.
You have to go back to my early days in Guyana, because I was involved in running a little club, and we had to raise our own money to play exhibition matches and things like that. I later began getting involved in basketball, and I became president of the Basketball Association. And during my time, which was 5 years, we improved the conditions of the court. We got sponsorship for the secondary school feeder program. We were able to get support to go to Venezuela and play in the CSC basketball championships, also to Puerto Rico. And so I had a background of club life. I had a background of leading an association. I worked also in radio in Guyana, so I understood the needs of public relations. I understand the needs of feeding the press so the public knows what is going on. And if you do it properly, the sponsors are happy with the kind of mileage they are getting in the media. So, you know, it's hand, wash hand, make hand clean. And basically when I got involved in the commentary, I used to pay a lot of attention to sport in the region, and I would attend as many sporting events and find out about administration, funding, and things like that. And that prepared me for the OECS job.
As we look now to the future in terms of the new generation, how do you think the private sector, the government, and even the diaspora can come together to continue to work of creating opportunities for the next generation, Reds?
Well, I would think that conditions have changed. There was a lot more funding available from the private sector and from the government's budget towards improving sport. A lot of the Caribbean countries were doing well, but things started to change when the banana industry was affected, when the world body allowed the cheap Latin American bananas to get the same treatment as Caribbean bananas, and we lost, the green gold, so to speak. All the Windward Islands were producing bananas, and they were affected. In the leewards, we saw maybe a change from sugarcane, and people started to go in different directions. But the point I want to make that the economic period during my time was very vibrant. I think now, with all the stuff coming out and the tariffs and the difficulty of transportation after COVID and things like that. And COVID really hit not only the OECS, it hit the world. So I don't believe that a lot of funding is easily accessed in the private sector anymore. But there's still some. And we will have to go through this very difficult period where the cost of living is climbing, and your exports are being taxed and things like that. I would think that things are a little tougher in terms of sponsorship at this time in 2025.
What are some of your, greatest moments or achievements that give you the greatest sense of pride when you look back at your tenure at the OECS desk?
Boy, that's a very difficult. I think the highlight was the fact that the Texaco Games brought us an OECS team into the Barbados Texaco Games. I remember in Antigua, I was able to get the great Herb McKinley to come from Jamaica to be a guest during the games. I got Hazley Crawford to come from Trinidad, Olympic gold medalist in '76. The first Trinidadian who was outstanding was Emmanuel MacDonald Bailey. And before he got into trouble, Ben Johnson came as a guest from Canada. So the OECS athletes had some of the greats watching them perform. That to me was maybe the high point. I think the other high point is the secondary school sponsorship. I got United Insurance to sponsor secondary school in the OECS. So every country in the OECS, from the offices of the United Insurance and later Massey, they were provided the money direct. It didn't come to me, it went straight to the ministries. The OECS secondary school program, I made a note of it in doing some research. It produced 36 test players for the West Indies. Wow. It produced well over 100 first-class cricketers, people who would have played for Dominica and played for the Windwards, people who would have played for the Leewards and played for Antigua and played for St. Kitts and Nevis, etc., Montserrat. 36 test players, I think, over 100 first-class players. To me, that was something which gave me personally a great deal of pride, because we were making a contribution to the highest level of West Indies cricket.
And with the present assembly of the heads of the OECS presently for the 7th session of the OECS assembly, which took place yesterday, and the meeting of the OECS authority today, taking place in St. Vincent, based on the whole achievements of the desk, if you would have to send a message to the OECS heads about a possible return of that desk, what would that be?
It will take about 6 months to get the desk back up and the wheels starting to turn. one of the things that you first have to get is the sponsorship for events. You just can't come up with great ideas about sponsorship, about events, without having the necessary sponsorship. So the groundwork will have to take place at the level of the private sector to see what sort of sponsorship you can get. There is no way we can have 35 events as we ended in 1996. There's just no way. So I would say once a sponsorship is there, it's quality and not quantity. I would think that right now you still have 4 OECS events still going all by itself. Swimming is gone further and further. The OECS volleyball has gone into a regional structure, but the OECS is in fact playing. The bridge, OECS bridge is still alive. In fact, St. Lucia will host the OECS 2025 bridge tournament. And I think that boxing is still very much alive. I think St. Lucia will host the OECS Creole Championships in August.
Yeah.
And at that championships, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, Guyana, Martinique, Guadeloupe will all be taking part. So the standard will be extremely high. And I think the plan is to invite the world body, World Boxing, to come and see the event in St. Lucia. So there are still OECS events taking place. So it's not impossible to restart the desk. I will like to participate in that effort. I certainly cannot be the head of the sports desk. I can be an advisor. We'll have to find somebody with the drive and enthusiasm and the ideas. But there are such people around. There are such people there are 2 or 3 people I can earmark quietly in my own mind that who probably can do it. Well, I wouldn't go any further, but it can be a reduced OECS sports desk with small numbers, less of events once a sponsorship can be found.
Reds, what's going on with West Indies cricket, Reds, at this point in time?
Well, if you have 3 hours to spare, we can look at it. But that is not something that I could deal with in 5 or 10 minutes.
I know, but then, I mean, we seem to be getting glimpses here and there because we have some time. And quite a bit of the listeners are messaging me because they wanted to hear your opinion on, in particular, the present selection of the West Indies team against Australia. Do you have any thoughts on those?
Well, I want to begin by simply saying that we need to go back to the structure which operated since 1928, where we had selectors. Selectors were chosen by the board, but they were independent. They made their own decisions. The selectors watched the first class season and then recommended a team to the board and recommended the captain. That has gone totally into the past. I think basically, and I do feel that we need to go back to more red ball game than the white ball game. The white ball game, T20, T10 in particular, are easy to get sponsored. Very easy to get sponsored because it's attractive. A lot of people come to watch. They probably are not cricket fans. And it's successful from that point of view. Is the white ball a development tool? I doubt it. Because there's a lot of bad habits in people playing white ball cricket. They play across the line. They're not looking to build techniques and things like that. And then I think And as I said to you, it's not just something you can deal with in 10 minutes. We need to go back to the secondary school where the likes of Brian Lara and Carl Hooper came from, and other great cricketers. I remember watching under 19 cricket with Michael Holding bowling to Fayud Bacchus. Secondary school cricket was strong in each island. And that led me to push for sponsorship within the OECS secondary schools. We need to go back to that kind of development nursery. Our first class standards are very, very low. We're not playing enough first class cricket. Because of the Future Tours program, we are playing cricket in July and in June and in August, where years ago our players will all leave for England at the end of April. We are hardly getting any of our players. One or two have been involved in counties, Roach, Holder, Braffett, a few others.
I think Sills.
So
also.
we need to go back to what made us great. And until we go back to what really worked for us, where we picked some great teams and had some great players, we will continue at the level that we are at now. I don't believe it's a good idea to saddle one man with three responsibilities of T20, ODI, and Test cricket. It's just too much. When you think of McCullum in England doing that, look at the resource that he has got available to him, the financial resource, the infrastructure resource, the coaching resource supported by the various counties. We just do not have that. We need to get a bigger slice of the ICC cake so that the leewards and windwards could get more money. The West Indies board can get more money. We need to sponsor our first class competition. So it's many-fold, and I really don't want to go on any further. I think I've touched on some of the nerves that needs to be attending. I think our public relations have got to be better, sharper. For example, we had Deandra Dottin ill for some time now. There's been no press release saying, well, she's on the mend. She will be available to the West Indies ladies in a month's time. And that's just one example. That's just one example of the slowness of the PR. That needs to improve. It used to be at a very high level at one time. There was no lack of information. There is lack of information now.
What do you make up of the team, the present team to take on Australia? What's your opinion?
Well, you got to be realistic. They're playing one of the strongest teams in the world. The West Indies will do well if they are competitive, if they can really keep Australia into the fourth day and fifth day. We have a tremendous job against a very strong team. It's not going to be easy for our players. They have a bowling unit of Hazelwood and Stark and Cummins and the off spinner, which are really Lions hard to fight off. We just have to wait and see how they go in the first game in Barbados. If they can come out of that with some degree of quality, some degree of competitiveness where we can get runs and get wickets against Australia, it could in fact reflect later in Grenada with the test match, second test match, and of course in Jamaica. But the first test in Barbados, we really must show some slate. We cannot, be overrun in 2.5 days. We really have to get batsmen working hard, committing themselves, not looking to hit sixes and fours, but build an innings Our bowlers have got to bowl the right line and length and not get carried away with too many short deliveries. The fielding has got to be of a high standard. It's that kind of tremendous job to us to run into Australia at this time. And after Australia, my brother, we're playing India in India, and we're playing New Zealand in New Zealand. So we have 3 tours that is really going to be very, very tough on any West Indies team.
We in Dominica every corner of Dominica is the talk of the omission of Afanez and Kavem Hodge. What's your honest, your well candid opinion at this time for the omission?
I think that Hodge could be said to be unlucky because he showed his class in Australia, he showed his class in England, and definitely should have been in the 16. His first class career going back looks very attractive. I think Atenas, maybe lack of runs recently against South Africa A, lack of runs in the 25 season. Had he been putting the scores together, he probably would have been maybe in front of Anderson or in front of somebody else. But I think lack of runs. That's my honest answer.
But then when you look at the lineup and you at the team makeup and you see Mikael Louis, you have 3 open bats in that makeup. What do you make from that? What's your take on this?
And I don't believe 3 opening batsmen will play. Somebody will be left out. My own feeling is that they will use Campbell and Braffett. And if there's failure, maybe Louis might get in. But initially, they have a 16, so they will have cover. They will have cover for the opening spot. You can't pick a 16-man team and only have 2 openers. But I don't expect Louis to start because he's still not the finished product.
And when you look at the management unit, and just before we wind down, and we can think of having a part 2, head coach Darren Sammy, assistant batting coach Floyd Riffer, assistant bowling coach Ravi Rampal, assistant coach fielding Rayon Griffith, team manager Roy Lewis. Is that a formidable management unit? Is that a winning management unit in your opinion?
Well, I will think that the team you call will have to be judged on their success. At the end of it all, those who made the decisions to put those people in place will probably have to have a second look and see if the backroom staff needs to be improved, and whether, in fact, there should be a separate white ball coach to look after the white ball level, and maybe a separate test match coach. Maybe we can have a backroom staff for the white ball and a backroom staff for the red ball.
And finally, Reds, for program number 1, what message would you give to the young athletes today who are dreaming big, playing on one of those dirt courts presently and hoping to follow the footsteps of those who came before and really making it to the professional level? What advice would you have for them?
I will say to all who are at school, finish your schooling. Get a piece of paper, finish your schooling. But whilst you were at school, concentrate on whatever sport you were playing. And you don't get better by being inconsistent at practice. You got to get fit. Nobody's going to get fit just by that. You have to get up in the morning, do your runs, attend your practices. You have to really apply yourself to the basic fundamentals. And once you work hard, you keep an open mind, you have an opportunity to learn from others, you work with your coaches, you work with your PE people, you can certainly turn things around. And the mere fact that, people from very small villages have come right through. I mean, you take the case of Carty. The conditions for cricket in his islands were very basic.
St. Martin.
But he worked very, very hard. And that is an example that I would like to use. The fast bowlers of the past, Roberts, Holding, Garner, Croft, Marshall, they worked very hard at their game. They got up in the morning and they ran miles. And it's a question of your personal commitment to whatever sport you play. You play basketball, you need to shoot 1,000 shots per week, etc., etc. Anyhow, I think we have exhausted all of that we can look at, and I really hope that your viewers would have enjoyed what information that I was able to pass on.
I really want to thank you, Mr. Reds Pereira, for the contribution you've made to the Caribbean. I mean, one would remember the days of the 70s, listening via radio, to now and present, and the whole OECS desk, which is Dominica, is part of the makeup, and what you have done for us as Caribbean people, bringing us together as a unit. I really want to thank you on behalf of the people of Dominica, the government of Dominica, sportsmen and women in Dominica, and we really want to thank you for your contribution to Caribbean, to the West Indies. Many, many, many thanks, and may the Father continue to bless, guide, and protect you.
Just let me say that you don't do anything by yourself in life. I was given opportunities by the Caribbean Broadcasting Union. I was given opportunities in Guyana. I came to St. Lucia, became Boxing Association president. It is the people who you are part of that makes it happen. Nobody does anything by themselves. And if it wasn't for opportunities to be at the sports desk, I would not have had maybe the little success that I might have had. As far as OECS, we used to have an OECS golf team. We had an OECS netball team. We had many OECS teams. And, it was a highlight that we can have OECS teams, track and field taking place in Barbados. To me, that was very, very important to give people a sense of moving forward.
Thank you very much, and really hope that you have a wonderful time on the Hailing of the West. See you until we meet again and make a connection for part 2. Thank you very much, Reds.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
Okay. And we really want to thank producer Jerry Williams for this particular edition of Creole Heartbeat. We would have loved to actually delve deeper into cricket. We know that's where Reds is strongest. But it's very important to connect the OECS. We are part of the OECS, and it's very important to understand the sort of contribution that this gentleman has made to sports in the OECS, and that is during the time of this OECS desk. So possibly the OECS heads need to look at revisiting that particular desk, and like we heard from Reds, is willing to actually assist in bringing that to a reality, and even if it's as a consultant. But I believe it did well, it served well, we as a unit, and as we are aware that our Prime Minister is also part of the heads in St. Vincent presently, and let's hope that one of those days we'll bring back that OECS desk so we can get more greater sportsmen and more out of us as a people and as a unit. Thank you very much. Another Creole Heartbeat program. I'm Leroy Wadix Charles. It's over to Dr. Miguel Labadie for the continuation of the best broadcasting in the Western Hemisphere.
Follow connect foye yo akumas makadas music. Gordon Henderson, Fritz Roy Williams, yo. Vivian Wallace,